Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all enjoying your time in the Go Battle League. I know I've been stuck at the same elo for a couple days now, so I did what everyone does when they get stuck. I went to a trainer who's 10 times better than me and got inspiration from them, aka I completely ripped off their team and now I am making a video on it. That's right guys, today we are going to cover a team created by one of the best GBL players out there. He was recently crowned World Champion. It is going to be a team created by Ikai0904, and don't worry, I did ask for his permission before creating this video, but he has been going on an absolute rampage with this team. He is currently at the top of the leaderboards, and he is well past veteran. Real quickly, sorry Ikai for exposing your team to the world, but it's really good, and thank you for the team. It helped me climb a lot. I actually regained all the points that I lost trying a bunch of other teams, but this one was really solid. The team is going to be Skuntank on the lead with Virizion and Drifblim in the back. I think Drifblim is the pivot on this team for the most part. I was using Drifblim as the sort of safe swap, but he recommends a team with Shadow Skuntank. Now, I don't have my Shadow Skuntank ready yet. I have all the excels for it. Unfortunately, I don't have enough Stardust. I desperately need Stardust because there's a lot of Pokemon that I want to build. But we are going to use a Purified Skuntank, which is a pretty decent ranking. It's rank 5 for Ultra League. So we'll use that instead. That's the only thing I changed on the team. But overall, the team performed really consistently for me. I was able to climb over 110 points in just the 3 sets that I used it, and I want to continue using it tomorrow. Maybe I have one final chance at reaching veteran before Ultra League leaves, because my goodness, I am going to be at the mercy of Master League and Psychic Cup after this, and it's going to be tough. The only Pokemon that really gave me a hard time against this team was Alolan Sandslash. You are kind of ABA weak to Alolan Sandslash, or ABA weak to Ice types in general, I would say. Walrein will also give this team a hard time, although Skuntank is going to be running that Trailblaze to hit for super effective against Walrein. For Alolan Sandslash, all you can do is go Crunch, and I just stayed in against the Alolan Sandslashes that I saw. It was not great, but then I came in with Virizion and I just saved shields for Drifblim and then just hoped that Drifblim could sweep whatever they had in the back. But anyways, that's enough rambling for now. I am excited to get into these battles, so let's just jump in. In this match, we are up against a Talonflame on the lead, and I really don't want this to see Virizion. My opponent, thank goodness, they swap into Licky Licky, otherwise this Licky Licky would have been aligned to my Drifblim because it looked like I was going to lose the lead against Talonflame with Skuntank, but they swap into it. I can now bring Virizion into Licky Licky. I'm assuming whatever their final Pokemon is going to be, it might be weak to a fighting type, so I go ahead and shield Virizion, and I'm going to go for a Sacred Sword here. We take their final shield. Maybe they thought I was running Stone Edge, but I do swap immediately into Drifblim after that, and my opponent's final Pokemon is going to be a Guzzlord. Okay, we have Icy Wind, which can hit for super effective, and my opponent has no shields left, so I'm going to go for these Icy Winds, and I think, yeah, they go ahead and farm us down. This is fine. I'm going to go immediately for that Sacred Sword. I'm actually not sure who wins CMP, but it looked like we won CMP over Guzzlord here. And we are going to be able to throw a Sacred Sword immediately on the Talonflame. It's enough to KO, and we take that win. Keep in mind, these were my first few battles playing this team, so I do play a few of these questionably. And speaking of playing questionably, this match is definitely one of those because we're up against a really nice lead of Clefable, which Skuntank should easily win against, but our opponent safe swaps into a Drapion, and I don't really have a solid answer to Drapion. If this Drapion is running Sludge Bomb, then it is going to destroy my Virizion, so I go ahead and I call that it's running Crunch and Aqua Tail. I no-shield the Sludge Bomb. Virizion's going to go down now. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to win that switch, and I bring Skuntank into this Drapion. I'm going to go for a Trailblaze here because I don't want to take a move from Drapion. We get an attack boost, and my opponent's final Pokemon is going to be a Hippowdon. At least I'm able to go for super effective Trailblazes, So I'm going to go ahead and shield the Weather Ball. I think I'm going to go ahead and double shield my Skuntank. Here, I should have just swapped out. I shouldn't have shielded this. Yeah, I go ahead and shield this, which is really not a good idea because they were going to be able to reach another Weather Ball before I could get to that Trailblaze. But now I am going to have to take a Weather Ball on my Drifblim. But here, I think the right move for me would have been to go for a full farm down on the Hippowdon because I just went and double checked it. Drifblim can win against Clefable if we can land 2 Shadow Balls and 2 Astonishes. That will be enough to KO a Clefable from full health. So I think I might have had a chance if I went for a full farm down, taken another Weather Ball from the Hippo, but they are going to be able to take us out with a Moonblast and a Swift from their Clefable, and our opponent is going to win that one. Moving on to the next battle, we're going to be up against the Core Breaker that I told you guys about. It is going to be a Shadow Alolan Sandslash, and I kind of just have to stay in here and soft lose this, hopefully. I know I don't even make it to 2 crunches before this thing can take me out, but I build up to a potential Flamethrower, and I trick my opponent into using a shield, and now they let me get to another crunch, which is surprising because at least I'm able to get that damage off on this Alolan Sandslash, and now I can bring in Virizion and go for a farm down. Unfortunately, I have to take an Ice Punch, but I am going to save 2 shields for Drifblim. Hopefully, Drifblim can sweep whatever they have in the back. They bring in a Tentacruel. I go for a Leaf Blade on Virizion before swapping into my Drifblim, and I decide to let the Scald go, and I was really happy that I decided that because my opponent's final Pokemon is going to be a Shadow Machamp, and a Stone Edge from this Shadow Machamp is going to be very deadly. I have 2 shields left, so I can safely go ahead and shield both of the moves that my opponent is going to throw. Even if they bait me, I'm still going to be able to reach a Shadow Ball before my opponent can reach another move. I even left that matchup with a little bit of extra energy on my Drifblim, and my opponent went ahead and top lefted. GG's to our opponent, and that is going to be a 4-1 in the first set that we played with this team. Remember when I told you guys there are a few games that I play really questionably? This is one of them. This is a disaster of a battle. I'm really considering taking this out, but I'm gonna leave it in. It's okay. We'll take a look at my mistakes, even though they're big ones. But my opponent built up to a Focus Blast, and I really thought they were going to go for a Focus Blast on my Skuntank, so I go ahead and shield. And then my opponent brings in a Dragalge, and I end up shielding again because they go for an Outrage, and that would have hurt my Drifblim. And here I mess up because I really thought I could farm them down, but they make it to another Outrage, and they take a Drifblim that is very loaded on energy out, so very unfortunate for me. My opponent's final Pokemon is going to be Skuntank. They have 2 shields left and I have none, so at this point I'm not going to be able to do much against the Skuntank. And guess what? Their Skuntank is also running Flamethrower. I think if their Skuntank had been running a moveset like mine, Crunch and Trailblaze, I might have had a chance here. But we are going to have to take a Flamethrower from their Skuntank, and yeah, I go for a Sacred Sword on Ampharos, but they are going to be able to farm us down with the Poison Jabs before I can reach another Sacred Sword, so GG's to our opponent. Moving on to the next battle, we're going to be up against another Talonflame lead. Now, I should really be protecting my Skuntank a little bit more against this lead and trying to win lead, because in a lot of cases they are having that Licky Licky in the back, and there it is. But so far I've gotten lucky because they've swapped to draw a fighting type out, and that means my Virizion is going to be switch locked into their Licky Licky, and it is not going to be aligned to my Drifblim. And also in most cases they have had a Guzzlord in the back. The Drifblim is going to have play against Guzzlord because it has access to the Icy Wind, and that is going to hit for super effective. I'm able to take the Licky Licky out. I go for a Sacred Sword here against the Talonflame, which is going to be enough to take it out, but they go ahead and use a shield. I catch the fly on my Drifblim. I'm able to farm their Talonflame down, and my opponent's final Pokemon is going to be, as I told you guys, that Guzzlord. I'm in a really good position here because I have 2 shields left, and I also have a move stored on my Virizion, so my opponent is going to go ahead and top left. GG's to our opponent. Moving on to the next battle, we're going to see a Shadow Dragonite on the lead. Now, this is another situation where I probably should have double shielded and won lead because their backline is definitely going to have a poison type. In most cases, it is going to be a Tentacruel, and if I can align my Drifblim to their Tentacruel, it would be a lot more ideal for what I have. But I do let Skuntank go. I'm able to come in with Drifblim, farm their Dragonite down, and then I have a lot of energy for this Feraligatr that comes in. I go for a Shadow Ball, they let it go, and then I swap into Virizion, and my opponent's final Pokemon is going to be a Shadow Nidoqueen, which if I had my Drifblim aligned to this Pokemon, I would have been able to wall it, but now I have Virizion up against it. At least I'm able to weaken it with the Leaf Blades. I go ahead and shield here. I have to shield. I have 2 shields left, so I'm fine. But they bring that Feraligatr back in, go for a Hydro Cannon. I'm able to farm them down, and then it is going to be a simultaneous KO. At least it's not a loss. We will get more points for that, but GG's to our opponent. Moving on to the next battle, we're going to be up against that dreaded Core Breaker. It is going to be a Shadow Alolan Sandslash again. By the way, before I was running this team, I was not running into any Shadow Alolan Sandslashes, but now, because I'm running a team that's kind of weak to it, it's everywhere. Now, for some reason here, my opponent gives up Switch and they swap into a Golurk and take a Crunch on it. And I mess up here. I should have stayed in with Skuntank and let them farm me down with the Mudslaps and then brought in my Drifblim. That way I wouldn't be Switch locked. But now I am going to be Switch locked up against their Alolan Sandslash. And my opponent's final Pokemon is going to be a Tentacruel, which is not great. I am going to go for Icy Wind. I was really hoping they would use their final shield there, but because I'm at another Icy Wind, the debuff is going to be very valuable for me, so I go ahead and shield my Drifblim, and now I am going to bring in my Virizion, and hopefully I can get their final shield out of the way and take them out with a Leaf Blade. They go for a Blizzard, and you can see why I really wanted to debuff my opponent, because that debuff was so important for me. That Blizzard barely did any damage, and I was able to take their Tentacruel out with Virizion and take that win. Moving on to the next battle, we're going to be up against another Shadow Dragonite lead. I'm going to go for Trailblaze because they almost always shield, and this time I decided to change up my strategy a bit and shield whatever my opponent is going to throw, because like I said, I am expecting a Poison type in the back, and if I can align Drifblim to the Poison type and maybe Virizion to a possible Feraligatr, then I will have a much better chance at winning this. But I get super lucky because my opponent goes for Superpower and then swaps into Feraligatr. That means I am going to be able to take the Feraligatr out with my Virizion, and my opponent is going to bring in their final Pokemon, which is going to be a Shadow Tentacruel. I go for a Leaf Blade and then I swap into my Skuntank, hoping to draw the Dragonite out. We do, and instead of bringing in my Virizion, I call that my opponent is going to go for a Superpower because I don't have shields left, and I swap into Drifblim. We get super lucky, and then my opponent goes ahead and top lefts. They were probably not running Blizzard on their Tentacruel, so GG's to our opponent, and that is going to be another positive set. Moving on to the next battle, we're going to be up against another Shadow Tentacruel, but this time it's going to be on the lead, and Shadow Skuntank should be able to do pretty well against this, especially since we are going to be outpacing to the crunches. Now, unfortunately, my opponent gets an attack drop when they throw Scald, and that means this next crunch is not going to be doing a lot of damage to this Tentacruel, and we're not able to take it out. They even swap into Golurk and snipe us. Now, I get really greedy here. I should have just gone for the Icy Wind before they could reach another Shadow Punch, but they reach 2 Shadow Punches. I end up using both shields, which is not ideal because that Tentacruel might have Blizzard and they have a lot of energy on it. So that is going to be scary for the 2 Pokemon that I have left. But I managed to catch a Brutal Swing from their Guzzlord on my Virizion, and they catch a Sacred Sword on their Tentacruel, but I don't think they wanted to do that because their Tentacruel is absolutely loaded with energy. So they go ahead and shield, take our Virizion out with Blizzard, And I am going to have quite a bit of energy on this Drifblim to be able to go for an Icy Wind before their Guzzlord can go for a Brutal Swing, and I should be able to reach another Icy Wind, and this will be enough to take this Guzzlord out, and we are going to take that win. GG's to our opponent. Moving on to the next battle, we're going to be up against a Golisopod on the lead, and I would much rather have my Skuntank aligned to this Pokemon than any of my back Pokemon. So this is going to be fine, but the X-Scissors are going to hurt. I'm going to go for Trailblaze to boost the Poison Jab damage. That way I have a better chance of taking this out. Now I go ahead and shield the next move, although I don't think I needed to, but my opponent is going to swap into a Hippowdon. I go for Trailblaze before swapping out so that I could take a shield from them, and then I bring in Virizion, and my opponent goes ahead and top lefts. They were probably running a double ground backline, and their Golisopod was not healthy enough to take care of my Virizion, so that is unfortunate. But anyways, moving on to the next battle, we are going to be up against a terrible lead of Cobalion, so I swap immediately into my Drifblim, and if my opponent goes for Stone Edge, it would hurt, but they went ahead and baited us with a Sacred Sword, and I wasted a shield. Very unfortunate, but after that, they go ahead and swap into their own Drifblim. At least I'm able to take a shield from them, but I'm not going to be able to make it to a second Icy Wind. So their Drifblim is in the red, but I'm not going to be able to farm them down with my Skuntank without taking another Icy Wind. So I go ahead and throw the Crunch before they can reach another move, and then I swap immediately into my Virizion. I get really lucky here because my opponent went ahead and threw the Sacred Sword immediately, and I caught it on Virizion, and my opponent's final Pokemon is going to be a Tentacruel. Okay, I might be able to win this with Skuntank. I'm going to go for a Leaf Blade here, and this should get them into the yellow, and then I swap immediately into my Skuntank, go for a Crunch. My opponent has a shield left. This should take their final shield, and I decide to shield this up because I think Scald is going to do more damage than a Sacred Sword. My opponent swaps into Cobalion. They go for a Sacred Sword. I'm going to go for a Crunch, and surprisingly, this takes them out. They do not survive, and I am going to be able to make it to another Crunch on the Tentacruel. It is going to be enough to take the Tentacruel out, and we are going to take that win despite the terrible lead. This next battle was just really not in our favor. We are going to be up against a Shadow Dragonite on the lead, and as I told you guys before, I'm going to go for Trailblaze because they are going to shield whatever I throw, and we are going to be buffing our Poison Jab damage. And this time I decide to let my Skuntank go. I want to save a shield because I still don't know what they have in the back. I am going to come in with Drifblim, but I'm not going to be able to farm the Dragonite down before they can make it to another Dragonclaw, and now they're going to bring in a Drapion. Okay, I am going to go for an Icy Wind and debuff them, and then I use my final shield. I still don't know what they have in the back. I'm gonna go for another Icy Wind. Maybe I can take their final shield. Yep, we get their final shield out of the way, but then I swap into Virizion, and my opponent's final Pokemon is going to be a Shadow Typhlosion. We're just going to get destroyed by the Shadow Typhlosion, so GG's to our opponent. Gonna take a loss here, unfortunately, but yeah. That was a completely hard counter against us. There are some games where you get countered and you still have play, but in that case, there was probably nothing I could do. But anyways, moving on to the next battle, we're going to be up against a Feraligatr on the lead, and this is a pretty decent lead for us because we have Trailblaze on our Skuntank, and Skuntank is going to be able to resist the Shadow Claws from this Feraligatr. We can also take one Hydro Cannon. I went ahead and shielded the first one, but I am going to be able to Poison Jab the Feraligatr down now because they let the first Trailblaze go. Now they bring in a Cobalion, and I swap immediately into my Drifblim, and we get super lucky because they swap out into a Giratina. They don't even throw a Stone Edge to take some health off our Drifblim or to possibly take our final shield. But this is such a good matchup for me because I am going to be able to, well, I'm not able to take the Giratina out, but I'm able to get it into the red, and my Virizion is going to be aligned to their Cobalion. When they see that Virizion, they go ahead and they top left, and that is going to be another win, giving us a 4-1 in that set and taking us straight into the high 2300s, and we're getting really close to veteran. And guys, that is going to bring us to the end of our video. Thanks again to Yakai for sharing this team with us. And if you guys like my content, please consider subscribing, maybe leave a like, it helps me out so much. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye!